I think the most important thing is airtightness is achieved in the planning stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that I think is the most important to remember. Airtightness is achieved in the planning stage and not on site. Hello, Julia. Where I'm talking you to today? Where you today?
Hello, Daniel. I'm back home in Australia, back home in
Okay.
Perth. So yeah, came back to beautiful sunny weather, which I really enjoy.
Yeah. Is it sunny? I think when you came back, it was raining like crazy on the first day.
When I came back, it was raining like crazy, but now finally it has. I think spring is here. I would say that's for sure.
Yeah. And so now after, back in Australia, and you see now the difference between what you had in Australia and in Germany. Can you tell the difference? What is like
Yeah.
striking?
I think the most striking was, even though it's warm outside, I think the other day, Daniel, I told you, oh, it's so nice and warm outside, but I was still sitting in here with my jacket on and the house just wasn't warm. Like the
Yeah,
house hasn't warmed up yet. It's slowly getting there,
yeah,
but we're living in this typical Perth double brick home, single glazed. So yeah, it's a big difference. Like the building quality is a big difference. So it feels completely different also from the kind of inside outside separation. Like that quietness in a German home is incredible. You know, you close your windows and it's just everything is shut out from the outside. Feels really cozy.
yeah. You remember I told you about this really annoying small bird that is so
Oh
noisy?
yes, you did
Yeah, that I
in
had
your
in the
other
other
place.
apartment where I'm living in your
Yeah,
area, and Tim
yeah.
said he has that as well. Last night there was as well this bloody bird here now at the new
Oh no.
apartment. So I think it's following me around. It's like this,
Possibly.
like
Oh
in the
yeah.
middle of the night, like every time. But
No.
so yeah, so this is the other type of passive house, right? It's really
Yeah.
passive. It's not doing
It's
anything.
not doing anything.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. For me, actually, I was actually yesterday the first time again dancing a bit of salsa. So I was going back to salsa.
Nice.
So I saw it on the beach the other day again that people were dancing. I said, "Come on, Danielle, you have to go back." And the business is starting to move a little bit better again. So I think it's the right time to have a bit of social life. So, Julia, what we are talking about today? What's the story?
Yeah. Today we're talking about airtightness.
Hmm.
And I want to start this also with a little story from when we were traveling with the family. So, one of our last stops was, and people who are familiar with WA, it's called Quobba. It's on the west coast, a bit up north, and it's super windy there. Super, super windy. Like it's one of the windiest places I've experienced. And it wasn't even that cold. Yeah. But I remember going out of the caravan in the morning with my jumper on, and it's a warm jumper. So inside the caravan, I was completely fine. But I went outside into that wind, and it was all of a sudden, I felt like, oh, it was freezing. It felt like that wind was sort of taking away all the warmth that I've produced in that nice jumper. And only once I put on my jacket, my wind jacket over that, I felt comfortable again. And that's a little bit how the houses are as well, Daniel.
Yeah, so that's what we are talking about today, the airtightness with the windbreaker and how that actually works in a building. So you could actually
Exactly.
say that your airtightness layer is in a way your windbreaker. Yeah, and your woolly jumper is your thermal insulation. There's another example that I like to use because it's something that Australians always experience. Maybe not having this European cold winters when you go out in a woolly jumper and then the wind comes and it's like that cold. But the other one that I wanted to bring is water. Yeah, like when you're in
Mhm.
the water in a pool and you're sitting there and it's cold water, and then you realize as less as you're moving, as warmer it is. So you have this protection layer around you, and it's like this little insulation layer that is forming around your body. Yeah, and if you're still and nothing is moving, then that insulation is able to perform. But soon you start moving, or somebody next to you is starting to move, then it's actually getting cold. And I think that's a more Australian way of explaining it,
Yes.
because this is what I guess every Australian has already experienced, at least the ones that went into water.
Yeah.
Yeah, cold water. Yeah, yeah. As well, ice baths is super crazy if you're having an ice bath, and then
I think
yeah,
that's the best example. Yes,
that there you
definitely.
really feel it. Cool. So that's the two examples we want to bring, the water and the wind, but I think we need to be a bit more specific because
Yes, for the buildings.
there's actually 3 layers that we need. Yeah, we need our thermal insulation, we need our air tightness, and what I normally call the second layer of defense, our weather tightness. So for this, I think it probably makes sense if I'm sharing my screen, because then I can draft you something, and that might make a little bit more sense than actually just talking about it. When we have here our thermal insulation layer, yeah, and then we normally do these wavy lines. The wavy lines means it's a fiber insulation. Then we have, probably I should say that as well, here's inside, here's outside. So you know how we're looking at it. Always on our right side. For me, my right side is the inside, and the outside is always on the left. As well, in all our material, you will see it like this. It's always done that way. So you always know where inside and outside is. And now we need our air tightness. In most cases, we need our air tightness here on the inside of the thermal insulation. Yeah, because when our warm air is coming here and is then going through this. Yeah, your warm air is coming through. Then the temperature is dropping. And when the temperature drops, we have condensation. So we need to stop the warm air to get in our thermal insulation so that we don't have condensation in our insulation layer. Because if there is, like, if you have a wet jumper on, you know how much insulation that is giving you. That's like nothing at
Not
all.
much then, yeah.
So exactly. So now we have our air tightness inside, but we have to as well to protect this thermal insulation from wind washing. Yeah. So we have a wind washing, and that's our second layer of defense that is on the outside of our thermal insulation. Yeah. And this is now our weather protection. So it protects us against the wind, but as well against rain. And this is really open. This is an extremely vapor open structure. And the other side is really, really tight. How do you spell tight? No idea. Tight, something like that. Spelling is not
Yes.
my strength. So, and this is now because we want to have, so we have an air movement and we have a vapor movement. The vapor movement is diffusion. The air movement is just air. Yeah. The air is transporting a lot of moisture. That's the reason we have our air tightness inside. But as well, we need to have these 2 layers designed so that if the vapor diffusion is actually letting moisture in, that the other side that lets the moisture out is more open than it's closed. So in other words, that our vapor performance of the buildup is on the side that the vapor comes in is less than on the other side can handle to let it out again in the simple way. So this is the normal buildup. Yeah. What we need to make sure is that between our weather tightness and our air tightness, between here is not allowed to be any gap, no gap in here. And I want to explain you why that is. Soon there would be a gap.
And you with gap, do you mean air gap?
Air gap.
Is that what
An
you're
air gap.
talking about? Air
So,
gap, yes.
so we
Just to
want,
clarify.
yeah, we really want to have that thermal insulation nicely packed between these 2 layers. They are super, super thin, but they are making the thermal insulation perform. Soon there is an air gap in there, then we are actually having a problem. And the problem is, can I erase? Let me see, like I haven't used this software for a while. Yes, I can erase. So if I now have my air tightness layer here, and here's now an air gap, and you may say, yes, let's use an air gap because then we can use the radiation performance so that the heat hits and comes back. Radiation, sky radiation, running in front of a fire. Then you see as well like that heat, that direct radiation that theoretically is giving you like a reflection. Yeah, you have a reflection in here. That's the reason in North America, so Canada and America, they're often teaching it this way. It's totally wrong. It creates a lot of problem in reality. In theory, it works, but not in reality. So what happens? We have our air coming in here and going through this membrane is super, super fast. It's a small hole, but now it has this air gap where it can actually slow down. And now even if there is a hole somewhere completely different in your buildup, so you have a hole here and maybe you have a hole down here, now the air can stay in here, can cool down, and then you have condensation on this surface and on this surface, mostly on the thermal insulation surface, and then the whole thing is not working, and then the air is going through here. This is the reason you want to wrap that perfectly from air tightness layer to thermal insulation layer, and like from air tightness to weather tightness, that is nicely packed so that we don't have air layers in there. So stay away from that problem. That's not what we want. So let's make sure that is not wanted. Yeah, no air gap. Now I'm making it even nicer and clearer what I'm building here, right? Yeah, let's draft it again. New, we have our thermal insulation. We're speaking of fiber insulation, could be any, but fiber is normally the better insulation to choose. Then on the inside, we're having our air tightness. On the outside, we have our weather tightness. And then we can have here whatever type of finish. We can have here even color bond on a horizontal if you wanted, and then have a button behind it. That would work, or you can have whatever finish, doesn't matter any longer, as long as that is a ventilated cavity. That's fine. And then on the inside, you can as well have now here buttons. Often they are horizontal in Australia, and then you can have here your finish. That could be a plasterboard or whatever. Why do we have this gap? That gap is for the service cavity. In the case you want to have windows, you want to have services in your external wall. Internal, it's not important. And you want to have, for example, here a light switch, or you want to have here a socket for your electricity. Then you want to have this gap so that you can put it in that is not interfering with your air tightness. Theoretically, what is done as well, you can buy air tightness boxes that you can put in here, but obviously then you are compromising here your thermal insulation thickness. But theoretically, you could then even say, hey, in this area, I'm using a better insulation to make sure that I have a similar performance than on the other. Yeah, so I'm now showing here something like a rigid foam or something like that. Yeah,
Yep.
and now this is the build-up. So you still have air gaps here. Yeah, you still have here an air gap. Yeah, and this air gap is fine because it's on the other side of our air tightness layer. And theoretically, here you would have as well that advantage of your radiation, but not on the other side of the air tightness layer. Don't do that. Okay, that was a little bit of drafting and explaining in my beautiful architecture. I'm an engineer. Like, you can't expect from me to do a nice hand drafting. Yeah.
I think it looks beautiful, Daniel. It's nice and colorful, and it shows everything that you need to know. So
Yeah.
perfect.
That's what you're saying to your 9-year-olds as well, right? But I hope it explains what I tried to explain a little bit better than
Absolutely.
just having it in words. What's coming to your thought when we're speaking about that?
Yeah, I thought a few things when you've drawn it. So firstly, I thought this service cavity is really clever. So we don't have to penetrate that air tightness layer, because remember that every penetration will need some attention. Yeah, you need to fix it again, or it will lower your air tightness. Yeah, you will have a worse air tightness. So that's service cavity is really clever. The other thing that came to my mind, Daniel, was because we're showing here an insulation layer. So that is assuming that we have here like a timber structure, I guess.
Yeah.
In this case, what would happen if we needed or if we wanted a different structure, like a CLT structure? Where would that sit?
So let's say we're having a CLT, a concrete. So let me draft concrete. Yeah, doesn't matter what it is. CLT, concrete, all the same. Could be as well masonry, could be anything at the end. Then again, keep in mind, here is in, here is out. As concrete, masonry, CLT has some thermal mass, has some weight. You want to protect that thermal weight. So you always want to protect your structure from the external changing environment. because as more thermal differences you have in your structure, doesn't matter if it's timber, masonry, steel, whatever, soon that has temperatures from -10 degrees, sun hits it, up to 60, 70 degrees, you have expansion and a thermal stress on that material. And that's your structure that keeps your whole building alive or standing. So you want to protect it. And as well, it gives you a little bit, if you protect it, it means this gives you a little bit of thermal mass that makes the performance of the building slower. It makes it more sluggish. So if you by accident do something wrong, it is not having such a big impact. But if you do it really wrong, then you need more energy and time to get it out again. But yeah, so let's say now we have our thermal insulation here. Here, you can use your fiber insulation directly on it. If it's a CLT, I would probably use a wood fiber. If it's a masonry or concrete, maybe I would go for a rock wool. Yeah, so a stone-based. Fiberglass is too light normally, so you need something a little bit heavier. So wood fiber would be possible as a fiber insulation or a rock wool. There's fiber insulation. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. But rigid insulation, so that you, for example, can put on here a render. Yeah, and that render that you're putting on is then your primary and your secondary defense. Yeah, and again, because what did I say about this layer earlier? This needs to be open. We can't use this plastic renders that people are using a lot in Australia externally. As well, internally, they're using this wash-off paints. What is okay in this situation on the inside, but not on the outside. So this needs to be like a lime-based render or like there's well some silicon-based ones, but be careful. They need to be open, so vapor-open render that you want to use there. And then your air tightness would be your structure. So if it's a concrete structure or if it's a CLT structure, the CLT and concrete is already airtight enough. In the case it is masonry, let me just show here a masonry structure. Single leaf, no double leaf. Don't build bloody double leaf. Yeah, that's just not what we want. Yeah, if you're having a single leaf, then you would work with your plaster internal. Yeah, your skim coat, that would be your air tightness layer. And then you have your thermal insulation directly on it. Don't build double brick. Double brick is technology that is 5,000 years old. We don't need that any longer. There's better solutions. Yeah, we do this again. And then you can, again, let's do now a different solution here. We now say we put on weather tightness, or maybe the material is already weather tight. You can get rock wool that has a hydrophile layer on it, or a wood fiber that is hydrophile. So it's not letting water in. It's actually repelling water. Yeah, so you can get that materials. I think wood fiber can easily have 600 hours of rain on it before it actually penetrates. And now you can theoretically have here, again, your buttons. Yeah, that's your counter button and then your horizontal button. You always want to have your button from the top to the bottom directly on your membrane so that the water can run down. Yeah, we want to create here this ventilated cavity. And now let's say we're having here Stülpschalung in German. So we're having here boards on that are covering each other. So that would be a board like this, another board like this, and then on top you have another board. That's pretty much the cheapest finish. And the beauty of this type of structure is if one of this board breaks, you only have to remove two of them and can take it away. So it's like a really easy maintenance structure. If you want to go totally eco, they don't even need to be treated theoretically if they're under a proper overhang and away from the ground so that your termites are not getting to it. So yeah. Did I create now a little bit of confusion in here? Let's make sure that we know that these are two different drawings. Yeah. So
That's
the
pretty
big
clear.
difference is air tightness for masonry is normally on the inside. So that's your finish internally. on a CLT or a concrete, you normally do it here in between the concrete layer and your thermal insulation, because it's so much easier to get your air tightness done externally than internal. And if you put now tapes onto your CLT or finished concrete, these blue tapes from an architectural feature perspective is not nice. Yeah. So if you're putting now tape on here, that doesn't look too nice. So we want to get rid of that. So now you can have actually exposed concrete, exposed timber in every corner and everywhere without seeing any taping or anything like it. So that's the reason we put it in between. Cool.
That's
that
brilliant.
was a little bit more technical stuff.
Excursion. I love it, Daniel. I think this is exactly what we need to know, how these things work in reality on site. Good.
So Julia, what do you experience with the students normally? What are they struggling with? What are they most amazed about?
Yeah, if I think about the students and their experience, I would say that the thing that's sort of most, well, it's two things. So once they get it right, they go, aha, moment, but it takes a while to get it right, is the positioning of the air tightness. So we always need to reiterate that the air tightness sits on the warm side of the thermal envelope. And in where most of us live here in Australia, it is on the inside, but there are instances when it's a really hot climate where we would want the air tightness on the outside, because that's now the warm side of the thermal envelope or the insulation. And the other thing, Daniel, is the difference between air tightness and vapor control, because it's two different things. I think you mentioned vapor before. We haven't really talked about in depth what the difference is. So the air tightness is where we want to make sure that the air which transports moisture doesn't go through our buildup. And vapor is different. Vapor is sort of water molecules that are sort of moving in the air, and they can actually go through a material. Yeah, so air only goes through gaps. Yeah, you need a physical hole for air to go through. But with vapor, it can actually penetrate materials. And we just need to make sure that we control that. We can't completely stop it, but we're controlling it so that only certain amounts of vapor are going into our structure. And that's the thing that people probably not everyone has heard before, that there's a difference between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, on that note, probably makes sense to say there's three water problems.
Yes.
We have vapor, that is the lowest problem, the lowest quantity.
Yes.
So if you give this 1 as a value of 1, then with air tightness, we can give this a value of 10. So it's 10 times as important to get that right. And then we have rain, external water, actual water that is there, and that's an importance of 100. Yeah, this is what we most of the times, like theoretically, we should be able to get that right already, that our plumbing is right, that our rain protection is right. But still, we have leaky windows, we have leaky roofs, we have busting pipes. It's still happening. So we still need to get better there. But air tightness is super important as well. But then soon we have that done, we need to look at vapor as well, because vapor can create a lot of problems. So for example, there's so many examples that like the vapor can as well create mushroom farms behind your builder. Yeah. And the vapor is the same problem why we don't want to have this air gap there. Because if the vapor is now able to go through the material, even if you don't have any leaks, and vapor is able to get into that gap, and because the temperature drops there, you already can have condensation there. So we need to stop that. So that's that. So air is an air pressure difference that causes it between inside and outside. So the air pressure is always changing. Sometimes when you open your window, nothing happens. Sometimes you open your window and you have to reorganize your whole paperwork. Yeah, so that's what we're talking about with air. And then for vapor, it's gas pressure. So it's like, gas pressure. Yeah, so this is concentration. Yeah, it's like the concentration of something. So like when you're putting a tea bag into a tea, at the beginning you see how this color is around the tea bag and then goes everywhere. And then after a few minutes, everything has the same concentration of tea molecules, simplified. And that's the vapor. And now we're having that separation between the inside vapor and the outside vapor. So outside is normally less if it's inside is warmer. And now this vapor wants to come into an equilibrium between the inside and outside. like your tea bags, like that movement that you see, or when you put milk into your coffee, it's the same thing. Like it's as well like same physics. That pressure that happens. So if it's extremely different, then it is really a big pressure, and if it's only a little bit different, then it's only a small pressure different. So yeah, so
Exactly.
that's maybe a bit too technical, but yeah.
Well, good. I think what we need to understand, if there's no difference, then nothing would happen. Nothing would move. It only moves if there's a difference, because it always wants to come to an equilibrium, as you said before.
Yes.
Yes. Wonderful. And is there something, Daniel, that you can say that happens on site? Sort of, when we're taking the problems that the students have, can that relate to something on site in the real building world?
On site, I think the most important thing is airtightness is achieved in the planning stage. Yeah, so that I think is the most important to remember. Airtightness is achieved in the planning stage and not on site. If you not have designed your airtightness up front and you leave it up to the builder, what we do a lot here in Australia, we just give them a Disney castle postcard, and then we say build it. Yeah, this is where it gets expensive. If the builder needs to solve this problem on site and then realizes, wait a second, my airtightness layer has now 500 penetrations that I need to manually tape around. If I would have put in a beam at this point that is airtight and I can wrap around it, I could have saved so much money. So we need to save that up front. From an economical perspective, you can make everything airtight. You don't need to think about it, but instead of $5,000 for airtightness, you're spending now 50,000 on airtightness. Yeah, so it's up to you. In the not airtightness achieved in the design phase, and then the next one that I see, a leaky bucket in a leaky bucket is still a leaky bucket. So that's for you builders. Yeah, leaky bucket and a leaky bucket is still a leaky bucket. So what do I mean by that? You need one continuous layer that works, that is airtight. You cannot just put something here and something there and then hope that it's not going through it. You need a continuous one layer that is airtight. Think about, you take your house, you switch it around, you fill it up in water, and that water needs to stay in there. If that happens, then you have done the right job. Then the next thing is, if you have a leaky bucket, so tapes over each other and it looks already messy, best is take it off again, start fresh. So if you have a leak in tapes and all that, and it's already 3, 4, 5 layers, what I see a lot on construction, then just cut it out again, take it off and restart. It's a safer thing as well. It's not building up so much. Then I showed you earlier that horizontal buttons. It's not a ladder. It's not a staircase to get to your ceiling. Yeah, it's a typical mistake done on site that people use these buttons to actually, it's only one screw I have to fix and then go up. But your shoe is now rubbing on that membrane. And now you actually take off the protection of the membrane and then the membrane. And now you have a leak actually in the middle of of field. And this leaks to find is actually not that easy. All the other leaks are on the joints. Yeah, so where membranes are meeting, that's where the tape is. So there's a tape missing, or it's always where you have corners and where you have materials meeting. That's where the leaks are happening. And then do 3 tests: one when the airtightness is finished, one when you're covering up the airtightness, and one for the certification if you're going for the Passivhaus certification. So handover. Yeah, and record it and have that as a record, so that we say, hey, now now everything is airtight before the electrician is coming in. After electrician was in and you want to put on plasterboard, now it's not airtight. What happened? And if it's then not airtight after the plasterboarder was there, then maybe they just cut the airtightness to get the plasterboard in. Yeah, so that's the recommendations I have for reality, for real life.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we should mention that the first 2 tests that you mentioned can be done by the builder themselves, but the last one for the certification has to be done by an independent blower door tester. So it has to be done externally for that to be a certification blower door test.
It needs to be not a party that has no interest in passing this test, because I have seen it. Super sneaky people, don't want to mention names. They're just starting a new company and then do the testing for their own houses. Yeah, and now I say, well, it's a different company. Like there is no conflict of interest. Yeah, BS. Yeah. So nah. It needs to be really a different party. So clients, be careful as well. Don't get fooled with this stuff. Yeah. Because airtightness testing, you can do it wrong. That's definitely the
Yeah.
thing. You can temper the results. Yeah. Okay. Now we know airtightness, what it is doing, but we often have that argument. I don't want to live in a sealed box. Right?
Exactly. That's what I hear a lot, like more from clients than from students, because I think the students already understand that
Yeah.
that's not the case. But yeah, hear that a lot. Oh, if it's airtight, how can we breathe in there? Wouldn't we suffocate? But yeah, it's not the
Yeah.
case.
So let's first of all say what airtightness means. Yeah.
Hmm.
0.6 air exchanges. That's what we call airtight. So let's say it's 0.5 air exchanges because we always want to go a bit better. Yeah. So 0.5 air exchanges, that means that the whole air volume in the building is replaced every 2 hours when we have a pressure difference like a light wind. Yeah. When your little branches start moving, that's the pressure difference that we're talking about. Then we're having an air exchange every 2 hours. And that's what we're calling airtight. The reality is that the average in Australia has 10 air exchanges.
Hmm.
That means every 6 minutes, the whole air of your building is changed at that pressure. Yeah, so we still have air exchange when it's airtight, but this is what we are checking. Like the 0.6 air exchanges is what we are testing, and then we call it airtight by the Passivhaus understanding. We're fulfilling the Passivhaus standard, but this is not saying that this is the actual air exchange of our building, because we have a designed ventilation system, and this designed ventilation system is sealed during testing. Means instead of have accidental ventilation through our buildups. So say you have already mold in your buildup because you have some condensation problems, and now your air is moving through there and then it's coming in as your fresh air, like with all the stuff that is in there, like fibers from your insulation, mold spores, whatever. It's not controlled. Yeah, you have no control over what is coming in. If you have still asbestos in your house, okay,
Hmm.
let's not go
Could be.
too crazy. But this is the difference. Like, so instead of have uncontrolled ventilation where we don't know what the ventilation is, we go for controlled ventilation. Not passive house would be just cutting holes in it and have your vents in it. Perfect, no problem. Not perfect, but that works. Yeah, it's not passive house, but that would work, and you still make your whole building airtight. And in a passive house, we have our heat recovery ventilation unit, and there we have an air exchange change rate of a minimum of 0.3. So that means every room gets the air exchanged every 3 hours. Yeah, so you always and that is without any pressure difference. Yeah, it's 24/7. Now the argument is coming, but what happens when the ventilation system is not working? I told you we have already 2 air exchanges anyway happening. Yeah, like every 2 hours we have an air exchange happening, so it's already happening. And then I think I said earlier 2 air exchanges, didn't I? Did I do a mistake earlier?
That's for the 0.5.
The 0.5
No, you said 0.5. Yeah, and every 2 hours
hours I
is what
have
you said.
1 air exchange.
Everything correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You never know what you're saying. So don't take everything what I'm saying or Julia saying or anybody. Take everything off that is correct. Be critical. Don't just believe everything that is said out there. So that's as well, I think, important. When the ventilation system would be failing or you have no electricity, you're not dying. Yeah, if your CO2 levels go above 1,000 parts per million, we will talk about that in other articles in more detail. It's not a problem. When we're getting to 8,000, it will be so smelly, then it's starting to be really dangerous. 4,000, it starts to be, 8,000 is dangerous. But at 4,000, it will be so smelly in your house of your own stink at the end that you open the windows anyway. So I wouldn't worry about that part.
I think also in a passive house, normally because the ventilation system supplies such fresh air, you would notice it at some
Yes.
point that something's wrong and you would just open the windows. And yes, then obviously we're losing a little bit of energy. We might have to put a bit more energy into either reheat or recool the building because we're not having the benefit of the heat recovery from the ventilation system. But in that case, if there's a power outage or if something fails, then yeah, that is it. But that's only for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you see, you wouldn't like airtightness doesn't mean that you're suffocating in your home. You actually have really, really nice fresh air, which is free of pollen and dust and pollution that's out there because we're putting it through a filter. But that again is a different topic for a different day when we talk about mechanical
Yeah.
ventilation.
But if you now believe that airtightness is what we need, do you think you want to have
Yes.
airtightness? And do you want to have a little bit of guide for this airtightness, how to do it? Then maybe our little download that you can find with our multimedia article. So you should find a link to this article somewhere. Otherwise, just go to the website and go to the blog and you will find it. I think it's what is this? Number 6.
6. Yeah,
Number
our
6, yeah.
Passivhaus Weekly
So
number
look for
6.
the PHW, Passivhaus Weekly number 6. And there you will find in the download section where you can download our check sheet. It's 4 pages. First page explains why. Second page explains how to design for it.
Mhm.
Third page is for construction, and fourth is for actually testing, what you have to keep in mind. So, and all of them are checkboxes with sign off, so you can actually hand that to your builder and all that stuff. So it's like designed so you can use it for your everyday projects. They don't need to be passive house. They can be anything. If you want to get air tightness right, this might be a good tool for you. So just go to the website,
Perfect.
download it, and you have already a little tool for yourself. And
Perfect tool.
follow. If you think this is good, click on follow, share it with others, because this is a completely new podcast or YouTube channel or whatever you want to call it. We need to have people following. Otherwise, the algorithm is not picking it up. So please follow. Please share it with others, because this is like, think about it. We have how much time we're spending with this and explaining this. You're getting this here totally for free. This is so many gold nuggets in this little recording here. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.